Future Vision, WayAround Near Field Communications Labelling System, presented by Jessica Hipp from WayAround on the 28th of October 2021. Future Vision. Future Vision is a series of technology events aimed at people living with sight loss. Future Vision is a collaborative project between 7 local independent sight societies, including Sight Advice South Lakes, Cumbria, My Sight's Notts, Nottingham, Sight Airedale, the Airedale area of North and West Yorkshire, Support for Sight in West and South Essex, Sight Concern Worcestershire in Worcestershire, Sutton Vision in the London Borough of Sutton, and the Hercules Visual Impairment Network in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Future Vision. We are created by 7 sight loss charities up and down England, and we are delighted to have today Jessica Hipp from WayAround, who has got up at, I believe, 4 or 5 in the morning USA time to join us here. I'm Vicky from down here in South London in Sutton Vision, and we're still waiting for another few people to come in, but I think we'll get started. So Jessica, over to you. Welcome, and thank you for getting up so early to join us.
Has joined the meeting.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. I also wanted to mention Andrew Hesser is on the line, and Andrew is our WayAround distributor in the UK. He runs Brian's Quest, which encourages people with vision loss to do more outdoors things. And there's some applications of using WayAround even outdoors. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But I think Andrew will chime in from time to time. He's just a great resource, an avid WayAround user himself, and someone who switched from PenFriend to WayAround. So I think Tim mentioned that there may be some questions about that. So Andrew would be a wonderful resource. So
good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jessica.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Yes.
Welcome.
So I'm Jessica Hipp. I'm the COO of WayAround. I was the first employee back when we started in 2017. And our co-founders both have vision loss, Darwin Belt and Armin Fisher. They are in Texas in the Dallas area. I'm actually north of Boston, so it's only 5 o'clock in the morning for me. If I was in Texas, it would be 4 o'clock. So, but I'm still working on my coffee. So I think what we can do is just go ahead and get started. I'm pretty flexible. I'll pause for questions throughout the presentation. But if you don't understand something, or if you have a question, feel free. We're not a huge group, so feel free to raise your hand or interrupt. So the more we can have a conversation, I think it ends up being a more fun meeting for everyone. And I just wanted to make sure, are we recording? I think someone's going to record.
Yes.
So WayAround, if you're not familiar, which perfect, thank you. It is a labeling system. I mentioned like the PenFriend. It's similar in a lot of ways, and it's different also. It works with your smartphone. So we have a free app, WayAround Tag and Scan. It's available in the Apple App Store and in the Google Play Store. So for both iOS and for Android. There's also a way to use WayAround with your tablet. A lot of people will use it with your iPad. It works with whatever accessibility settings you have on your device. So if you have inverted color scheme or larger font, you'll see the information that way. If you're a voiceover user or talkback user, then of course you would hear things audibly. And one of the best things about WayAround is it works with a refreshable braille display. So we have a number of users who are deafblind and use the refreshable braille display. And in fact, one of our top users has just hundreds and hundreds of things around her home tagged, clothing and medication and, everything, appliances. And she says WayAround is the system that has let her stay independent in her home, as both her hearing and vision and mobility have decreased. So I think it's a great story about just how flexible WayAround is. I mentioned our co-founders both have vision loss. Armin lost about 95% of his vision in his mid-50s over a very short period of time. So he's almost totally blind, and Darwin has had low vision for most of his adult life. He's been blind when he was a younger adult, and it was surgically corrected. He has diabetic retinopathy and night blindness and macular D and a whole fun concoction. So they make sure that WayAround is working for their needs. I'm going to go ahead and share my phone and stop telling you about WayAround and just show you how it works. So this is the WayAround app. Our logo is black and white, so very high contrast for low vision. I'll go ahead and open it up.
WayAround, heading level 1.
And I'm presenting on an iPhone 7, so there's a few differences on the Android app, and I know Andrew is an Android user, so I'll mention those in a little bit, but for the most part, they're very similar. So I'm going to start by just swiping through. All right, so we are up in the header.
WayCloud connected, image.
So the WayCloud is our backup system. Everything is account based, so my tags are written to my account and your tags would be written to your account. And if I come visit you, I'm not going to be able to read your tags, which is a lot of people like that. If you want to tag things like your prescriptions or even credit card information, you can put on there. So the thing with that is you want to, if you have multiple people using WayAround in the same household, you would just all want to be logged into the same account so you can read the same tags. And then the WayCloud is where everything is backed up. So if you get a new device or if you use WayAround on both your mobile device and your tablet, all of that information is automatically synced. If you're not connected to the internet, either through Wi-Fi or through cell data, you can still use WayAround because everything is saved to your device. So if you're offline, if you're out on a cruise, you know, when we can all do that again, you can still use WayAround to read everything. And then and you can even create new WayTags. The next time you're connected either to Wi-Fi or to cell data, when the WayAround app is opened, everything just automatically backs up. So you don't have to do anything, but the little WayCloud icon tells you WayCloud is connected, everything's syncing.
Settings button.
So the settings button, that's where you can log out if you ever want to do that. There's also a bunch of resources there. We have a pretty active YouTube channel. We just uploaded a new video last week. So there's a lot of great resources, FAQs, some links to our website, other things that you can access through the settings button.
Scanner ready, press the read button below. Then hold the top part of your phone on the WayTag until you feel a double click.
And the technology behind WayAround is NFC, or near field communication. And if you're not familiar with that, it is a wireless technology that's it's very tactile. So this is not using the camera at all. You're just touching your phone to the tag. If you have an iPhone, it's the top skinny edge right in the center. That's where you're going to touch. Androids are a little bit less standard. Some of them, if you have a Google Pixel, it's pretty near the fingerprint sensor. I've seen some Samsungs that are down in the bottom, but you know, if you've ever used Apple Pay or Android Pay, it's the very same technology. And so you just want to touch your phone.
WayAround.
Oops, I'm pressing buttons.
WayAround.
So you would
WayAround, heading level 1.
You would just want to touch your phone to the tag. So, and then at the bottom, there's 2 buttons, read and create. Read is to read the information on a tag that you've already added information to, and create is adding information to a tag. So it's a really simple interface. It's a great way to learn voiceover and talkback if you have someone newer to those, just because you can't really get lost in WayAround. So we have 7 different types of WayTags. They come as stickers, magnets, buttons, and clips. And they all work exactly the same. I'll talk a little bit about the different uses for each of the types of WayTags. And mostly it has to do with how you're attaching them. So you would use a magnet on something different than you would use a button on. So I have a button. This is called our oval hole button. Okay, so our oval hole button is about 25 millimeters and it is hard black plastic. So I am going to tap the read button, and then I will read this WayTag and you'll find out what's on it.
Read button. Alert. Ready to scan. Ready to
So
scan.
I'll touch the phone to the button.
Skinny jeans. Mid-toned blue. Super comfy.
All right, so I tagged my jeans. This is the description field, and you can put as much or as little information in this field as you want. So, you know, this is the information that I wanted to know about this pair of jeans. And you can think of the description field as the identification information. So what do you want to know every time you scan to be able to tell, you know, one thing apart from a different thing? So for your jeans, you might have, you know, a nicer, dressier pair, and then you have your comfy jeans. So that was something that I wanted to put on there, but you could put anything. Some people put, you know, just 1 or 2 words. Other people put a really, really long, you know, even paragraphs. You can put up to about 2,000 characters, which is a couple of pages in Word. But just remember, whatever you put in that field, you're going to hear if you're using VoiceOver or TalkBack every single time you scan. I have some other information on this tag, and we call those the details. And those are things that are related to the item that you might want to know some of the time, but not necessarily every single time you scan. So I'm just going to swipe so that you can hear the types of information that I've added to my, my jeans tag.
Washing. Machine wash normal. List start. Purchase date. August 3rd, 2021. Shoes. Sneakers. Ankle boots. Flats. Not good with heels. List end.
So again, you can really personalize this information. You know, if you wanted to do sorting instructions or drawing instructions, we have a lot of pick lists to where all of that information is pre-entered because it's fairly standard. So you can just pick one of the standard options, but then if one of our standard options isn't working for you, you can always add a custom detail, which is just a text field. And then if there were very specific instructions, you could put those. You don't have to ever put a detail. They're completely optional, but a lot of people really like the details. If you're someone, you know, who's detail oriented, or you like to match your outfits, there's people who will match their jewelry and lipstick colors to their outfits. So people can get very, very detailed, but you don't have to. You just use whatever information is important to you. And then all of the tags, you can edit them as many times as you want, anytime you want. You can make a small edit, like correcting a typo or adding, you know, one more detail. If I wanted to, you know, add tops or blazers or something that my jeans look good with, I could just go in and add that. And if I decided, you know what, it's time to retire these jeans, I'm going to use this tag on something new, you could completely overwrite everything. And, you know, if you wanted to tag one of your new blazers or something, you could use it that way as well. So it is very flexible in terms of how you use them, what types of information you put on there. You can put an unlimited amount of information and edit an unlimited number of times. I see a hand from Danielle.
Hi, sorry. My phone's jumping around all over the place. I just wanted to get clarification with the buttons. How can you sew them on, or did you say that it was a safety pin? Because I'm just worried about them falling off, maybe.
Yes.
If you're putting them on clothing.
Yes, we have 2 different styles of buttons. The one I was just using is called the oval hole button, and that's one you would use with a safety pin. And I do recommend a rust resistant safety pin for exactly the reason you just said, so it doesn't degrade, and that would cause a problem. We also have the 2-hole button, which is a little bit smaller. I believe it's about 20 millimeters, and it's more like a traditional button that you would sew in. So again, they both work exactly the same, purely a matter of preference, how you prefer to attach them.
Awesome. So could you, for example, get the 2 hole buttons and maybe put them on socks so that you could pair them independently, for example?
Definitely. And again, it's a matter of personal preference. So some people do exactly what you said. You might want to sew the button onto a sock, you know, and you would just want to decide where it's going to be most comfortable. The sewing buttons aren't huge, but they can be a little bit bulky. So, you know, putting it in a place that's discreet and isn't going to irritate your skin. Some people, and this question had come up from somebody else, you could also choose to use one button with a safety pin and pin a pair of socks together. And so then you wouldn't have them tagged while you were wearing them. But then at the end of the day, if you take them off, re-safety pin them, and then toss them in the wash already pinned together. That way you have them matched. So some people prefer to do it that way. The buttons also, the oval hole button, you can loop a hair elastic or a rubber band through that oval hole, kind of like a slip knot. And some people use that method, you know, then they'll wrap the rubber band or the elastic around the socks. And again, then they're paired. So there's lots of ways to do it. Armand, really, he has all of his socks tagged, and he has them tagged individually because he wanted to be able to do his laundry and match everything and not depend on his wife. So it is a really popular way of working.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I ask you a question? Is there any power within the buttons? Do they have a battery in them, or do they not need anything like that?
Yeah, good question. They don't have a battery. What they have is an antenna. It's a very small antenna that's a little bit circular. And I'm going to stop screen sharing for a moment so maybe you can see the tags. So, you know, there's an antenna inside. The buttons are covered in hard black plastic. So, you know, the antenna is fully encased. But there's no battery. The phone is basically what triggers and powers the button. So all of the power is coming from your phone. But because of the technology and it's a wireless transfer, it's just really easy on your battery life. You know, the difference between focusing a camera, you know, your phone's camera on a barcode or a QR code is going to take a lot more battery than a quick scan.
Do they have a lifetime, or do they last forever?
So our manufacturer tells us they last for about 10 years or 100,000 scans. So, you know, the biggest thing is just not to damage the antenna inside. If they were in an extreme environment, or, you know, somehow they got cut where the antenna was damaged, then it wouldn't work. But otherwise they just last and last and last.
So what would be considered an extreme environment? Because you mentioned they can go through the wash. So I assume they can probably cope to 40 degrees. I don't know what standard washing machines temperature is over in the States. We tend to wash at about 40, maybe 60 if you're doing whites. Do they last in a tumble dryer though, which I think gets hotter?
They do. So the buttons are the most durable. They're both the hard black plastic, and they are heat rated. It's 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, you know, above boiling temperature. And then cold proof, they are down to -40, which is the same Fahrenheit and Celsius. So, you know, even gardeners will use these outside. I have gardeners in Alaska who use the buttons, and they'll attach them to plant stakes, sometimes directly to the seedlings. And then they'll leave them outside over the winter, and the next year they work great. So, you know, if you had something that was a more extreme temperature range than that, it might not work. That's just what they're guaranteed for. And that's just the buttons. And then also, if you had any sort of chemical that got on there, that could possibly damage it. But I just haven't heard of anything actually doing that. I think if you were in an industrial setting where you had a lot of harsh chemicals, maybe the life would be shortened. But in terms of residential use, just, you know, household cleaners, I have not heard of anything like that affecting life. And I think, is that Tim? Do you have your hand up?
Yeah, quick one. Hi, just sorry I was late, everybody. We lost our service from a flood. Right. Roger, people in my area, just so you know, it's the South Lakes in Kendal. Roger and Michael, I've heard you online. I've got some of these tags. So if you want a demonstration, I know how to use them. I'm quite happy to lend you some tags and show you how to set your phones up. Okay, just so you know. It's quite simple. This is okay then.
Thank you. And I noticed Tim was holding up a couple of the other styles of tags. I mentioned the magnet earlier. And so this is our magnet. It's square. It is great for the tops of canned foods. You can just lay it right on top. Even if it's one with a pull tab, you can kind of slide it right under that pull tab and it'll just be a little bit of added security. And again, you can put it on top. I recommend for food, have a little basket or something on your counter. So when you take off the WayTag to use the can, you can just put the tag in the basket. And then when it's time to make your grocery list, you can just scan through all of the tags in the basket and know, okay, I need to get more, black beans and more corn or, whatever it is, but you tend to get the same things over and over. And then if you wanted to record the expiration date, once you go shopping, you could always just update that expiration date. Or if you don't want to do that, you could just say, black beans and stick it back on the new can of black beans. So you can come up with a system. We have several videos on our YouTube channel. We've partnered with a blind occupational therapist out of the New Orleans area. And she has done, I believe, 4 different videos just, about how to create a system and manage your groceries and shop independently. So she has some really good tips. And she's very good about layering systems. And I really believe that, there's no one system that's going to do everything for you. So you can do a combination of, WayAround and bump dots, or, WayAround and some tactile markers, like if you typically would use a rubber band on your salt, but not on your pepper, things like that. You can add WayAround. So if you just need to know, okay, this is salt and this is pepper, the salt has the rubber band. But then if you have 4 different varieties of salt because you're a gourmet cook and you have your pink Himalayan salt and your kosher salt, that's when you could use WayAround, because sometimes you want to have more than 2 varieties, and you could put sourcing information. If you order online, you can even put in a URL right on the WayTag so that you could just click that and be brought to the site where you would reorder. Some people will link recipes, directly to the WayTag if you like to use online recipes. So anything that your smartphone does, clickable links, you can add that to a WayTag. So phone numbers, email addresses, so you can get really creative.
Can I jump in there, Jessica?
Sure, of course.
Hi, hello everybody. My name's Andrew. I'm totally blind, and I use WayTags quite extensively. And Jessica was mentioning the salt there. I find it particularly useful for flour for my baking. So I've got my self-raising, my plain wholemeal. I mean, it's a tactile flour, but I even label that, and then corn flour and bread flour. That's just one example of differentiating between similar items.
Yeah, that's great. And I was looking, one of my stickers has run off, but so we do have 2 stickers, and this is related to the differentiation. Here, I have another sticker. It's on a folder, but I just want to show, one is square and one is round. So the round one I've actually put on this folder, and then the square one is it's on the paper backing it comes on. But you can also use the square and the round as a tactile differentiator. So if you have, your regular coffee and your decaf, you could do that. And then if you want to put sourcing information, you might want to scan to get that level of information. But in the morning, if you just want to get the right canister so that you make sure you get the regular coffee, you could come up with a tactile system. The other thing to know about square versus round is anything that's square in WayAround will work on metal. You can use it on glass or plastic, anything else, but metal will interfere with the radio waves that's used to scan. So all of the square tags have a little barrier layer. So you can go ahead and stick a square tag will go on metal. So the magnet is square because magnets always go on metal. And again, you can use a square WayTag on absolutely anything. You don't have to use it on metal. But if you do want to tag an item that is metal, you'll want to use a square WayTag. So the round WayTags don't work on metal. The square ones are really good for tagging appliances. If you have an appliance that has one of those, flat touch screens, you can describe, what that is. Sometimes dryers will have buttons. If you, push it once, it does this. And if you push it twice and hold it down after the second one, it'll do this whole other thing. So if there's some complicated settings, you can record that type of information on a WayTag. If you're tagging an appliance, oftentimes it has a plastic casing, but there's metal underneath. And so I do recommend using the square stickers on appliances just because even the metal behind can interfere. So I think it's just a safer option to use the square stickers, but you can experiment. And what happens if you use a round sticker on metal is it's just as if there's no tag there at all. So it doesn't ruin the tag or anything like that. If you just move the tag to something that wasn't metal, it would be fine. So if you're ever scanning a tag and you're like, this just isn't working, it's like, it's not even, there's no tag at all, that you might want to check for metal. And then the last style of tag we have is the Way clip. And I think I saw Tim hold that up. It's like a big plastic paper clip. It's about twice as tall as it is wide. And this is great for things like cereal boxes. You can even use it to tie a bread wrapper, one of the plastic wrappers. You can kind of loop it through. It has a couple of tabs at the bottom half. One is going down from the center and the other comes up. And that just lets you face the clip either up or down. And then the center tab, it's almost like it's been squeezed together from the middle, and that's so that it would accept a rubber band or a hair elastic. This is another really good option for canned foods. If your cupboard is arranged in a way that it makes more sense to tag the side of the can versus the top, you can just put a rubber band around the can, slip the Way clip on, and then you would be able to scan from the side. So again, it's just a matter of personal preference in terms of what tag you use. And we do have also a square top Way clip. So I will pause and see if there's any more questions about types of tags, or if you have something that you might want to tag and which tag would you use? Yes, John.
Hi. Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Can I just ask
Pierre.
a couple of quick questions? If I'm trying to tag DVDs, like I've got a DVD collection, is there like a paper tag which would go onto the disc and could actually go in the player? And the other thing is, when I've got like a database on my phone, is there a way that I can export it and then have it in my laptop, so that, for example, in the details, I might have the location of the discs. So like on shelf, whatever, column 1, row 3, and then I could just, on my own time on my computer, just go through my database and organize my stuff.
Yes. So let me first talk about what kind of sticker you would use. So I would use a sticker and experiment with it. We've found that a lot of the players themselves, the stickers, they're not thick, but DVD players and CD players, sometimes the sticker is just too thick to allow the disc, to do its thing. So it may be better to tag the case, or if you have one of those plastic sleeves, tag the sleeve, and then you would take out the disc, use it, and put it back in the same place so that you would always know what it is. Most people find that system works a little bit better versus tagging the disc itself. Your question about the database is a really good one. And So we are working on a web portal where you would be able to log in from your laptop or your desktop and see a whole list of all of your tags, all of the information. You could actually go in and edit that. That's not available yet. It's something that we're working on in the background. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that it'll be ready probably around the first of the year. And it may be that we haven't, right now it's for our public spaces customers, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We don't yet have a plan of when it'll be rolled out just for everyone, and there may be some sort of a subscription fee to access that. We haven't decided yet, but I just wanted to let you know there may be some additional costs to be able to access the data in that way. But yes, it absolutely is possible.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, it was just to I can't remember who mentioned about reading DVDs. Seeing AI can read barcodes, and so that's another accessibility app. And I think in the past has worked with CDs and DVDs. And that was going to be my question. Is there any planned sort of integration to other tags that are automatically on products like barcodes or what have you, planned for WayAround? Just because I know you're technically limited to how thin you can get the stickers because of the antennas. You know, there's a set diameter they have to be to work in with the technology that you're using. So if you integrated with a barcode scanner, then actually you're sort of covering more products as well.
Yes, we do have plans to work with barcodes, and in fact we've purchased a very large database of hundreds of thousands of products to where we have the UPC code and then nutrition information. So really the challenge with phone-based barcode readers, I think Seeing AI probably has the very best one, but they can be difficult to focus. So we're working on, just making sure it's a really smooth experience. And we do have a lot of people, again, I talked earlier about combining technology. So using something like Seeing AI or like Ira. And again, anything that's camera based, whether you're talking to a human being or, using AI, it's going to take more time than using NFC. So sometimes people will use one of those services to get the information initially. Ira will actually email you the information, if they're describing a touch screen or your clothing or something, even a bottle of a supplement, they can type everything out, email it to you. You could copy and paste it onto a WayTag. So that initially you might need to use something else to get the information, but then you can get the information again and again very quickly once it's on the WayTag. So different people have different preferences. Some people, love using Seeing AI, and that works. And, and the things it works for, they don't use WayAround to tag it. But other people find, sometimes Seeing AI is great, but you might spend 45 seconds focusing it in the right place for it to read the text or to scan the barcode. And you might not want to do that every time you're, going through all the cans in your pantry to try to figure out which is the one you want to use for dinner tonight.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I suppose just very quickly on using them for tins and cans, can you rewrite the information on each tag completely, just in case you choose not to rebuy black beans and choose to buy a different type of bean on that particular day?
Yes, and what I recommend if you're wanting to just get rid of all of the information is, instead of going into edit, which edit brings up all of the information that's currently on the tag, but in an edit mode, you just go to create, and that gives you a blank slate. And then once you get the information on there, you write it to the tag, and then it'll just overwrite the information that you already had on there.
Andrew? Yeah, I can talk about, this is Andrew from Brian's Quest in the UK. I can talk about CDs and DVDs. I label my CDs, And talking, Jessica saying about combining technologies, what I do is go online and get the track listing and all the sleeve notes from a CD. And then I email that to my mobile, and then I cut and paste that onto my WayTag. So I'd imagine I've got more information on my tag than I could get from a barcode. I've not scanned barcodes, but I wouldn't imagine the barcode would give you full sleeve notes and information. So I enjoy reading like the track listing and then who's written the particular tracks and all the things sighted people get from the sleeve notes. I enjoy that, including the date when the album was released and things like that. So I've got Thunder and Lightning by Thin Lizzy here. And instead of using a sticker on the outside, because I'd run out of stickers, I lifted the CD case, and then in between the paper sleeve, I slid in a WayTag, and I can actually close the CD case up and read the tag through the perspex of the CD case, because you don't, do you, Jessica, have to touch the your smartphone to the tag. It can read from a few millimeters away because it's the touch that it's almost contactless, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And
So I'm reading through like a millimeter of perspex here, and I find that useful because sometimes if I've got a tag and I can't, I've run out of stickers, I'll actually use sellotape and or a sticky sticker and stick that over the top of the WayTag, and I can still scan it through that. So I can just stick a bit of tape onto a lid of something and then scan through that. And also just noticed on this CD, I've got Braille, which I did on there in the old days, but on the Braille, all I've got is the name of the band and the name of the album. So I'm using kind of two different technologies here too, because I've got this Braille for instant identification, but then my tag contains all the juicy information that's on the sleeve notes, which I've then got off the internet and combined. So that's, I also, Jessica mentioned there in passing, editing your tags, which I find not just a passing thing. It's really, really useful because I label plants. So I'll label my seed packet when they come in later this year. And then when I come to sow the seeds, I update the WayTag or way sticker, or even I've popped a button into a packet of seeds just to make sure it doesn't get lost. And I can read the tag or the button through the packaging of the seed packet, which is great. And then also I update by editing the WayTag. So I don't just clear it, I go into it, can read the information, and then I add in to the WayTag the date that I actually sowed the seeds. Because you don't tend to sow a full packet of seeds all at once. You want to ration the crop throughout the season. So maybe half the packet of the courgette seeds to get sown. So I put the date when I sowed them, so that helps me keep track of things. And then also they're still labeled. So 2 months later, when I go to sow the second crop, I can remember when I did the first crop from the tag, and then also mark the new sowing. So that's the editing I find is really powerful because it builds up almost like a diary over the year, and not just for plants. Jessica was mentioning about putting recipes on. So on my bread flour, I'll have my bread flour recipe, and then if I decide that I'm going to adjust something and something else worked, like I needed to leave it in the oven an extra bit of time, I can edit that into my tag. So next time I scan the tag, there's my notes about how I improved my methods last time. And then I could also even add perhaps a second recipe onto that tag, and it's right there. And the thing with the tags, isn't it, with the phone and all that information you've got, is it's there at the time when you need it. You don't have to go off and look things up. And so I find that particularly useful for plants and my plant names.
That's right. That's great, Andrew. And I think another example that Darwin, one of our co-founders, uses is on his appliances. He has all of the contact information for whoever does the maintenance, or if there's a warranty number or customer service number. And then anytime he has somebody come out to service, the washer, he'll just make a note, it was October the 28th, and this person came out and did this. That way he has a record of what's been done. So if there's any sort of regular maintenance, either you need to call somebody to do, or if you do things yourself, you can just log it, and then you remember, okay, I did do, what I was supposed to do 6 months ago, or, oh gosh, I forgot to do that. I better do a little extra this time. So there's lots of creative ways to use WayAround. And I think, Andrew, your point about you can get very different types of information than you can get from a barcode. Anything that's a barcode is going to be standard. The generic information that is really important and useful. And sometimes there's more specific information that you might have, and that's where you can make WayAround work really hard. And in fact, we are getting more and more fully sighted users who, you can almost use it like an electronic sticky note, where you're just creating notes to yourself and things you want to catalog and remember directly from the item versus having to go somewhere else, a journal or a computer or something to look it up. I know that we have been talking for quite a while. I don't know if all of you have a hard stop, but there's a couple of other things I did want to mention. The first is our packaging. So this is a pack of way clips. All of our, the tags that I mentioned, the stickers, magnets, buttons, and clips, you can purchase them in a pack of 25. And they're all more or less US dollars. Brian, you would have to tell the UK conversion, but they're about $1 to $1.10 each. So they're fairly affordable. You don't have to purchase them in any order or amount. Some people, if you're going to tag your entire wardrobe, you might get, 4 packs of buttons or something. There's no limit. You can have as many as you want. Other people just buy a pack at a time. You might buy some buttons and then buy magnets, and that's fine. Just if you want WayTags, you just figure out what kind you want and you buy more. We also have a couple of starter packs that they're more of a combination of all the different tags, which people often like to start there. That way you can play around and figure out what's going to work best for you. And then you figure out, which button you like, or if you prefer the clips or the magnets for your canned goods. And then you can just buy the 25 pack. But on all of the packs, in the top left-hand corner, if you have any usable vision, there is a white circle, and that it has our logo inside, but that is actually a WayTag. So you can scan the label on the packages that you get. And then if you've purchased 3 different packs, maybe you have, two magnets and one of the clips, you can just scan and it'll tell you, this is the WayTag clips. And so that's a really good way. You can save these bags and then use it to store your WayTags and organize them. And it's also, if you've never used WayAround and you're like, okay, how does this all work? Try reading this label. Just select the read button. If you have an Android device, you won't have a read button. Android is sort of always in read mode. So you just tap your phone directly to that sticker, and then you'll be able to read it. So that's a good way to know everything's working. And I also give my contact information. Again, my name is Jessica. The easiest way to reach me is via email, connect@wayaround.com. And it looks like a generic email address, but it lands right in my inbox. So I'll put it in the chat also, but connect@wayaround.com. Or you can always just go to our website and there's a contact form and you can fill that in, and that will also reach me.
Great, thank you.
And then of course, Andrew is a wonderful resource at briansquest.org.
I might just ask a quick question. It's Vicky here. If we still haven't got John. Jessica, just thinking, people have talked. Brian's talked about emailing, finding information online and emailing it and then saving it into the tag on your phone. Now, if you were just doing your clothes and you can't see very well, or you can't see at all what you're doing, how do you know what you're looking at? Would you then use Seeing AI or something to get the information and then type it or dictate it in? Because it's not actually scanning the label telling you what it is and then inserting it itself. Presumably it's down to you to find the information out and then get it into the app somehow to label the tag.
That's right. Yeah. Shall I mention something?
Please do.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I either get a sighted person to tell me, but then they only need to do that once, and then I've got the information. Also, it is, Jessica mentioned at the beginning about you can obviously, if you've got Android or VoiceOver, you can voice input into the text box. So if I'm working with a sighted person, I can get that sighted person just to talk and describe the item whilst I'm inputting their voice directly into the tag, and it's obviously converting their voice to text, and then I save that to the tag. Another thing is, if I'm purchasing clothes, I'll have a few tags in my pocket, so I can always label them at the shop before I've even brought them home. That's two ideas, and you don't need to like sew in or maybe necessarily put your a safety pin in the shop. You can just have some tags and then just pop them in the pocket or somewhere in the garment, and then obviously you can clear that tag when you get home if you want to transfer. And that's the other thing, you can obviously transfer the information. Now, have I got time just to mention about transferring information? Just 30 seconds, yeah. Because one example is that I've got, I said I do lots of gardening, so I will I store my seeds like the beans in an old jam jar. So it's got a metal lid. So inside the lid, if I unscrew the lid, I've got my square magnetic WayTag safely there on the lid, and then I put the lid on so they're nice and dry for sowing next season. Now, when I come to sow them, I will scan that tag to see what they are, and then I will go into edit mode, and then I will either change the information or just save that tag again to another blank tag. So then I've got two tags with exactly the same information on, and then when I put these in the ground, I'll put the tag near the seeds that are in the ground, or usually I put them into pots. So I'll put the tag near my pots or stick them in the pot. And so I've got two tags with the same information on. Then if I sow them into the ground, I could even make a third copy of exactly the same tag. So if you're buying clothes and you've sort of put a tag in the pocket of something, a shirt, blouse in the shop, then you could get home and then just directly transfer that information onto your choice of tag if you're going to use a button or an overhold button. So, I just love the way it's kind of data. So once it's in your tag and it's data, you can copy it and paste it and adjust it and do all those sorts of things with it. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that. It's always good to have a really practical answer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You said about the scanning mode. Like if I've got, for example, a shelf, 10 DVDs next to each other. If I'm using an iPhone, when I want to read it, can I put it in like an auto read mode? So I just move it around and the nearest tag to it, it'll automatically read what's next to it without having to press anything.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Not yet is the answer. iPhone, when they first allowed NFC usage, you had to press the read button. And recently they've made it to where you can have the auto read with certain phones, but we really like consistency across the different models. And so we will probably build that function into our app, at some point within the next 6 months. But for now, your option is the WayLink, which I'm holding up. It's a scanner that links to your phone via Bluetooth. It's about the size of a credit card. It's really lightweight. And if you go into your settings, you can check that you want to use the WayLink instead of scanning with your phone. And then you could do that continuous scanning. So it's just scan, scan, scan.
Yeah.
So if you have a device that does not have an NFC reader, which iPhone 7 and above does have the built-in reader, excuse me, then you wouldn't necessarily need this. But for people who have a lot of WayTags, they often end up getting the WayLink just because it does make it, fast and it's convenient. You can have your phone docked, on a counter or on your, in your belt or something. as long as you can hear it, then you can just scan with the WayLink, you know, even if you're across the room. The range is about 50 feet. So you can be quite a ways away and use the WayLink. So it's very handy. It's a good option.
Could
Okay,
I just ask, this is Andrew from Brian's Quest. The person asking the question, are you an iPhone or an Android user?
I'm an iPhone user.
iPhone, I see, yes. So everything Jessica says applies. With Android, you don't need to press a read, so you can just scan tag after tag in succession.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Yeah, that sounds good. It's like a little light pen extension. So if I need to, I could get that or get an Android.
Could I just say thank you very much for having Jessica and myself here. I'm particularly happy to be here. Now, Brian's Quest is the UK distributor for these tags, and seeing as you've all behaved yourselves, I'm quite happy to offer a 5% discount. You don't need to rush. I'm going to make it open to Christmas Day, and that will give you 5% off any purchase through the Brian's Quest online shop. And the code you'd need to use is, if we say F for future and V for vision, so FV and 5, then you do that at checkout, and then that would claim your slight discount.
Thank
you. And the address is, as Jessica said, briansquest.org. And there's also a sample pack with just 7 tags, one of each of the styles of tag as well. So you don't need to buy a more expensive starter pack or anything. Thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew, for sharing that information. I'm sure us site societies can share that with our members in due course by email. And Jessica, thank you so much for getting up and sharing that with us. I think it's been invaluable. It's been really, really interesting, and it does seem to, on the face of it, to work really, really well. And seeing examples by Andrew as well, you know, him guiding us through some practical applications, I think has been brilliant. So thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming. I think this has been quite a big group today.
Yes.
So thank you very much, and hope to see you next month.
Future Vision and Live Well. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. Future Vision events take place on the 4th Thursday of each month at 10 AM. Live Well sessions concentrate on making the most of life with sight loss. These sessions take place on the 2nd Thursday of each month at 10 AM. To attend the next session or to suggest future topics, please contact your local site society, who will be able to provide you with the Zoom link.